Now it's starting.
It's time for again on Wednesday evening Bible study. Take this opportunity to welcome everyone here tonight. Certainly do appreciate your presence. Joining us online tonight, we want to welcome you. We're online each Wednesday evening 7 p.m. and also each Sunday morning at 9:30 a.m. Keep that in mind and help us spread the word. For any reason you need to contact us, all of our information is on our website. Let's also continue to remember Sunday morning at 9:30 a.m. Our morning worship service. Make plans to be here for that. We want to continue to remember all those that we mentioned Sunday that's on the sick list, keeping their prayers here as well as at home. Also, Berlin and Junior, They're both doing better. In fact, I think they were able to get out just for a little bit yesterday by themselves and ran around checking on me to make sure whether I was cutting his hair or not. Anyway, they did get out for a little bit, and Beer, now she is contagious, but it's not from COVID. It has nothing to do with COVID, but she is contagious, and I'm not sure what's causing it. But anyway, still love her anyway. I told her, she said, while the coach come in and said, oh, nobody's afraid of him. I said, I've been afraid of you all my life. But anyway, look at her. Also, Shelly Hancock, Shelly home tonight sick. Also, Sister Martha, she's not here. I guess she's not feeling well. Yeah, I saw her Tuesday when I got shots in my eyes. Martha was getting shots in her eyes as well. I remember both of them. Also, Shirley Owen, this is John's mother-in-law. Shirley's not doing good at this time. Keep her in your prayers as well. There may be some others that I need to mention. How's John doing? Okay, Mary's brother John Mack came out of his room today. We both pray that he continues to improve as well. Is anyone else I've overlooked? Okay. Also, Barry and Stacy Rosie, all of you know them. We've had a part with them over the years, but now their support used to come through here. But now, if anyone wants to help them in any way, you send it to Strickland Church of Christ, and then earmark it for Barry and Stacy Rosie. Keep that in mind. Everything now will go to Strickland for them, so keep that in mind as well. Of course, happy anniversary to Michael and Jennifer. They had an anniversary to start this month. The day before the 4th, we got married on the 3rd. That way they celebrated the 4th. With Eugene, he had a birthday Sunday. Not a whole lot I can say about it. I texted him that we should have a birthday over him. Anyway, and then Sean Fox, Sean has his birthday on the 7th. I believe that's tomorrow. Thank you. All right. And then on the 9th, Riley Reed. Riley's the only one of us that really like to celebrate. Nelson, you took care of Riley for her birthday, did you? Don't act like you did, Jeremy. Moving right along. Also, Tim, young Tim, he got a birthday coming up the 16th. Tim, you like the rest of us, son, you're getting older. And then on the 20th, Riley Parker has a birthday. So we both happy anniversary and happy birthday. Certainly hope to have you order of worship tonight. The first song, by the way, is 535, so we'll get songbook. Turn to that. Brother Bunny will be leading the singing. Brother Tommy Case has the open prayer. Michael, you have the closing prayer. And Clayton, you have the closing. You're right.
All three verses of 535. Let's start. I'm in the way, the bright and shining. I'm in the glory land way. In the world that Jesus saved. Yes, I'm in the glory land way. I'm in the glory land. I'm in the glory land. Heaven is here and forever. I'm in the glory land way. Listen to the call, the gospel folks. Get in the glory land way. Wander, come home, oh, listen to obey. For I'm in the glory land way. I'm in the glory land. I'm in the glory land. Heaven is here and the grow. I'm in the glory land way. Onward I go, be joyful. glory land bled. Soon as I see him in town, I'm in the glory land bled. I'm in the glory land bled. I'm in the glory land bled. Heaven is here and bled. I'm in the glory land bled.
Let's pray. Father, come at this time to thank you for this another beautiful day. Given us our lives. We're also thankful for all the help you've given us. Thankful for the Lord. Great at this time we can see precious ones tonight, right? They may soon return to normal health. Great to be at this one of us now to put our classes, studying our word, to make our open hearts and open minds as we're able to study our word and grow stronger in it. We especially, Father, thank you for sending us down the cross someday we may have home with thee in heaven. Yet you continue with elders, this congregation, they may things that please thee, do the right things, make this congregation grow. Gracious be with Brother John, and see him this lesson. Gracious continue to bring them to life, that he may be able to continue to preach our word. We ask you to be the teachers, classes tonight, one classes to learn the portion of it. Strong to give influence to others. Gracious Father, be with us. We do fall short of thee and sin. Be with us, forgive us our sins. Gracious now, go through the rest of this day. Be with us always.
At work, I was working actually. And then I believe Charlotte, there's a way up there. 10 o'clock. It's delayed. Yeah.
All right, I think we're about good to go. Yeah, the reason that I asked Bobby to mention Shirley was because we have over the past couple days, we've been working on getting her moved into Dogwood. And it's, she just needs somebody there, like almost all the time. And when it's a matter of her, when she's, I'm trying to think of how to put it. She's had, you guys are pretty familiar with most of the situation anyway. She's, a couple years ago, she had an issue with some lodges. And those things, they caused a series of strokes and mini strokes, and that has just really messed with her ability to retain information. Sometimes she'll get it and it's not a problem, and then sometimes you can repeat the same thing 4 times within a 5-minute span. And so she really kind of needs somebody that's there. and right around the same time that she was having this, that we started noticing these memory issues, she also had bladder cancer. And so those two things just right on top of each other just really mess her up. And because of that, she's had just a series of doctor's appointments, and because of the memory issues, a lot of times when she goes to these doctor's appointments, she's supposed to fast for a certain period of time. And so then it turns into, whoever's babysitting, quote unquote, somebody has to be there. And so she's lived with Leslie for I guess a couple of months now. And if you know Leslie, she doesn't like to sit still very much. And so she's busy, and all of us are busy, and everybody's busy, and so we talked to Shirley and we went out to Dogwood, and she visited some friends that she's got out there, and they talked about how nice it was. We went and looked at the room. She's got a nice room. The bathroom is probably bigger than mine. I know the closet is, so she's got some nice stuff there, and then she'll have somebody there all the time if she needs it. It's a difficult thing. She was showing some signs of anxiety last night, and just being anxious about the move. And we were out there getting her room ready yesterday. We moved some furniture, and then today Courtney went back up, and came back up, and she's been doing some things over there trying to get Shirley situated. She's forced to stay there for the first time tonight. So really the thing that we need the prayers the most for is for Shirley to have an easy transition because she's nervous about it. And it's understandable because it's a change. It's a complete lifestyle change. But it's not been, the past couple of years have certainly not been easy on anybody in the family in that regard. So that's why I'm asking for the prayers on behalf of primarily Shirley there. We have, I think last week we kind of chased a lot of rabbits, and we didn't get very far in the book. I've still got more on page 54. I don't even think I wrote down that we got anywhere, to be perfectly honest. So we were finishing up this idea, trying to establish the crisis that we are in. And the main idea is that we are in a bit of a crisis. This crisis is that we as a, not necessarily as a congregation, but as a, when we get into that idea, we talked maybe back a long time ago, the universal church and the congregational church, and the differences thereof. And one of the biggest problems that we have is that as a universal church, we're having difficulty training young preachers. And we've talked about a lot of the issues that are coming along with that, and the fact that it's the faces of the things that these young men and women even are facing. Because remember, we said, okay, first of all, the book here is talking about those that will stand in the pulpit and preach. Okay, but at the same time, those are not the only people who preach. Okay, and that's one thing that I want us to make sure. This book is talking specifically about those pulpit preachers, and those people are important. But if we're being honest, and one of the things that we've established multiple times is that where does the vast majority of evangelism happen? It doesn't happen here. It happens at home. It happens at Walmart. It happens at school, at work. That's where the vast majority of evangelism happens. So when we're talking about preachers, okay, yeah, it's easy to throw that label on the guy that stands in the pulpit, but every single person here in this building, across town at Foot Street, in Tupelo, Mississippi, all the 87 churches of Christ that are there, we as a body, as a part of the body, we're supposed to be training preachers. And this in a much larger sense than just the pulpit. But here we are. So we're talking about, we've established what the crisis is. Okay, so let's look at the charge. When there's a crisis, when we talked about, I think last week when we brought up this idea in World War II, there was a crisis, right? Okay, we had Germany. They were going through and they were killing innocent people for absolutely no reason other than the fact that one person really didn't like another group of people. And so he fed this idea and this using propaganda until everybody bought into it, right? Okay, so that's the crisis that was leading into World War II. Okay, so then what was the charge? What was the charge? The response to that, the mental response to that. Before we ever actually even did anything, okay, we have to identify the potential solution. Okay, we have to say, this is the problem, and this is where we want to get to. This shouldn't happen. Okay, so looking here at number 1, it says, it is the mission of the church to train preachers. It's the mission of the church to train preachers. Okay, just like in World War II, we identify, okay, this is happening, this is the crisis, and it's wrong. You shouldn't put men, women, and children into ovens and cook them alive. You shouldn't do that to the tune of 50 million people. You shouldn't do that. Okay? Well, it makes sense, right? Today, the mission of the church is to do what? Train preachers. Why do we train preachers? So that we can evangelize. Okay, what does that mean? That means that we are reaching out to those who are here in this building and our surrounding community to where? The whole world, right? Okay, so that's the whole idea. If it is the mission of the whole church to take the whole gospel to the whole world, then it is the mission of the church to do whatever is inherent in the discharging of that responsibility. Okay? So whose responsibility is it? It's ours. It's ours. Okay? We talk about there are people, and I know that you've all heard stories like this, and I'm not going to try to give an example verbatim because I'm just, I don't know, COVID brain or something, but anyway, we know people who are real quick to identify a problem. You're doing something wrong, or that there is something wrong, but they don't do anything to help fix it, right? Okay, so, that's exactly right. They're part of the problem. And I'm not going to ask you a question, but I know that in the position that you're in, I am sure you don't have to tell me I'm right. But think about it this way, okay? I'll tell you what, let's change it. Let's not, we're going to take the spotlight off the bottom because it'd be too much fun to pick at it, but we're not going to do that. So, okay, how many people in here might be considered a boss at work? Or might have experienced some level of being the boss at work? Okay, so, yeah. All right, so we'll go with Randy here. All right, so Randy, you're the boss at work, and let's say that you got somebody who comes up and they just complain all the time. And they don't ever really fix anything. Does that help you out at all? It doesn't. What does it actually do? Yeah. Exactly. So they're not even really identifying the problem, they're multiplying it. Because now as a teacher and I'm in charge of a classroom, I got 100 people that I have to deal with in a day, and every time somebody asks me to go to the bathroom, I gotta make a decision, right? Okay, and when you're the boss, you gotta make similar decisions. You may not have to give somebody permission to go to the bathroom, but you've got to make other decisions, right? You have to put up with people and personalities, okay? And so that can be different or difficult. Okay, and inherent in this matter of preaching the gospel is motivating and training men to preach the word. Okay, so what is it? We have to motivate people. To do what? To preach. Okay. We talked about the problem. We talked about a lot of the reasons why we don't have people who are stepping into pulpits as readily as they once have. Remember, this book was written 50 years ago. Okay, so the problems that existed 50 years ago have probably gotten worse since. Okay, so what we have to do is we have to motivate people. We have to motivate preachers. Okay, since we're talking about the pulpit style preacher, what things might be there that might motivate someone? Or I tell you what, I'm going to pick on Clayton for a minute. Okay? Not really pick on him, but I want to use him as an example. How might we, as a congregation, motivate someone Clayton's age to want to go into ministry?
I know that when we had last leaders training this past year, Brother Case really stepped up and motivated Clayton to be. He took the time he was here, time that we had practice.
Yeah.
I mean, constantly encouraging. That's how you do it. Putting in the work.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Being an encouragement, right? That's a big thing. Encouraging people to
went beyond this encouragement. You got to put in the time to do something. Faith's come a long way.
Yeah, absolutely. Good points. Good points. Okay, so we're actually working with someone to help with that growth, right? Okay, so then there's that encouragement that comes along with it. Okay, so those are some good ways. What about other people who may not want to step into the pulpit, but we know that they carry that label, that they're going to carry that label into the world?
We have to let them know that we realize their problems and struggles. We
Yeah.
have to contact the word, acknowledge it, and then we have to kind of show that we understand and accept it.
Okay.
If it's something that is common, to be fear of speaking in front of an audience.
Sure. Yeah. Okay. So acknowledging the potential for discomfort, I guess, and then trying to help them work around that, maybe. Okay, that's a good one. But what about let's flip it just a little bit, because we're talking a bit about Clayton. What about Taylor? Okay, what about someone who like Taylor or Allie Rose or Gracie or even Abby? What are some ways that we can make sure that we are including them in this? That we can encourage them or motivate them or train them to be that person. Because we said evangelism, the biggest part of it happens in interpersonal relationships. It doesn't happen here. So we got to make sure that we're not just focusing on the Claytons, but we also need to make sure that we're focused on those other folks as well. And those last leaders programs, they're really good at doing that. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
Being their experiences getting out.
Yeah.
They're getting out.
Yeah.
They in turn, they're associating the other young ladies.
Mm-hmm.
They already heard them, so let's see what they're doing.
Right.
And then, these young ladies, always, what kind of work,
Right.
you know, that seed,
That's it.
that seed, the he'll water it, make it grow.
Yeah.
They're probably in that way.
Oh, yeah.
And the other young ladies, and so forth, the even young men see them, to see the way that they handle themselves,
Right.
and so forth. Remember, only after 6 years, almost 20 years. Do you know what I've heard more than heard years than any other thing?
What's that?
Faithful.
Yeah.
I've heard that years. I mean, not just one or two, but I'm talking every one of them had something to say about it.
Mm-hmm.
And this young lady, she cheerleader and all that.
Yeah.
But that's what they all had to say about it.
Right.
That's what they seen in her, how faithful she was.
Yeah. And that's it. And it goes to that idea that we mentioned it before. And it's one of those things, I heard it somewhere, I can't tell you where I heard it, but it stuck with me. It's that idea that we, and when I say we, it's everybody. We might be the only Jesus that some people see. Okay, when I step into a classroom, I don't know the background of all of those kids. I know some of them, they have both parents at home. But I know that there's a good part of that, good portion of that they might have two parents at home, but they may not be their parents. Some of them might have grandparents that take care of them. Some people might be sleeping on, I can remember I taught one guy that I knew for a fact he slept on somebody's couch every night. And those are the kind of people that we need to make sure that we're talking to. And that we're encouraging our young people to talk to. Be that kind of person that shows that there's hope and that there's love in this world for Christ and what that means as a message to others. Okay? Though we have some reservation about the inherent this matters, preaching the gospel, motivating the training them to preach the word, though we have some reservation about the statement. Don't preach if you can keep from it. Okay, so basically he presents this idea here, don't preach if you can keep from it. Basically, he's saying that we don't agree with that idea. We believe it to be the mission of the church to so motivate its young men that they cannot help but desire way down deep within to be a preacher of the gospel. First recruiting ground for the ministry is the congregation where boys worship. And again, this is really focused on the idea of growing young men to be preachers. But I want us to make sure that we know that it's not just the young men that convert people. It's not just those people. It's also our young women as well. So when we read this and it's talking about young men, make sure that we understand that or approach it with the idea that it may not be just talking about those people that can work on the pulpit. Okay. Number 2 here it says, we are not affirming that the motivation and training must begin and end at the local church. And this is going to get back to what we've been talking about before. In fact, the training and motivation should begin in the home. How important is it that we show our children and that we have a level of faith? How important is it that our kids see us reading our Bibles or praying, or just how we treat our spouses? Those things are extremely important, and those things that's where it all starts. And I mentioned last week about It's like one of my cousin's ex-husbands who we were walking through Walmart and he decided he was going to let off a string of expletives. And then their little kid repeated everything he said. The little kid got in trouble. And I was, they'll see that. But they also see the good behaviors. They'll see it when we pray. They'll see the kind of language that we use when we talk to people. They'll also see it if we talk bad about other people. They'll see all of that. They'll see it if we complain about every single thing that goes wrong in a day. They'll see all of those things. So we need to make sure that when we're talking about this idea of training, teaching and training, Bible classes are good, but if you're waiting for a Bible class to do it, it's too late. You need to make sure that we're doing these things at home. Even before the child has a complete concept of the New Testament church. Then, after completing his high school education, the motivation and training can be further intensified in our Christian schools. However, the young man will be related to the local church for some 18 years. Okay, and again, this is kind of narrowing down this idea that the majority of ministry is handled by men, and it's talking about those young men being in the church or the local church for about 18 years. That's subjective to every different situation. I guess what it's saying here is that up until someone gets 18 years old and then they turn around and they go to college, they're going to be at home, which may not necessarily be the case. Again, that's very subjective. And that during the most Christian, did someone say something? Yeah. Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Right.
If your Bible study here, first year, pastor,
Right.
and who knows how they're getting
Right.
it feels as another.
Yeah.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think about congregations that I've had an opportunity to worship at, and I think about a lot of the people who I may have sat in a pew with that have gone on to become preachers at some capacity, and I've known quite a few. I can remember, and I'm going to the congregation that we used to go to in South Hill over Mayfield, and that's the one that's like 4 minutes from our house. 20 years ago, there were about four or five of us who that would at some point, and around my age, that would at some point go into being preachers. And I was thinking about the kind of things that we were involved in at the time, and we were encouraged. There was one at that point in time. There was one minister in the congregation, but we were encouraged to work with the young people. I didn't have any kids at the time, but they wanted us to work with the young people, and they wanted us to get them involved. And I think it's that being involved is something that really helped me specifically to grow. But I think about one of the other guys who was about my age, who he's now the minister at that congregation. His name is Adam Miller. He and I got a big group together, and we took the kids out to them out to Six Flags. It was a lot of fun. But we took our youth group to Six Flags. We put everything together. We did a couple other retreats and stuff with them too, and it was a lot of fun. And that's not how I looked at it, but at the same time, it's being involved that allows you to grow, right? Okay, so when we talk about congregations, when we talk about them putting out or creating or training preachers, a lot of it is on the responsibility of us sitting in the pews. How involved are we? Are we really working to make sure that we ourselves are growing, or is it a matter of, okay, I just like to hold my seat down? Those things are also really important. I would have been in my 20s at that point in time, so this idea of doing this for 18 years. I guess another thing, really, too, when I was in my early 20s, mid-20s, they wanted me to start teaching a Bible class. And I was kind of nervous about it. But I started teaching a Bible class. And some of the other guys, they would teach Bible classes as well, and we would alternate doing it. So those are things that we did to kind of get, I guess, more comfortable standing in front of people and talking. But that's kind of one of the things that I think that congregations could do to help foster a greater participation and growth. During the most critical time of his development, whereas he will be in the Christian college only for 4 years. Thus, in the very nature of the case, the local church bears a greater responsibility in this matter. So again, let's take the example of with Clayton again. Let's say that he decides while he's in high school, or he might have this inclination that he might want to go into ministry. I'm not saying he does or he doesn't, but I'm saying that this is an example. So we'll have, let's say that he's in this congregation until he turns 18, and then he decides to go to Freed Hardener, right? And so he'll be at Freed. Who has the greater pull with him? Is it that community college, or is it that college, or is it the home congregation? The home congregation does. Okay, that school can teach him. Okay, this is how you write a sermon. But that local congregation is going to be where he's started to grow his understanding of things. Okay, and so that's important. It says here, brethren, the church has been miserably failing. Has the church, what do you think? Has the church been failing in producing preachers? What's that? To some degree. Okay. Yeah. I think it's tough. I think a lot of it goes into this idea that when we look at, and especially today, when we look at the general consensus, the public idea, the idea of society about Christians is what? Ignorant. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah, no, that's absolutely right. It would be extremely difficult to try to do, especially as a full-time minister, to work if both parties are not complacent in it. I guess, you know, it would be, you know, if you wanted to compare it to, you know, an elder or a deacon and their spouses as well. Right? Those same things, those same ideas have to apply. Okay. Good job. We'll pick up here, top of page 55 next week.
Tonight's song is 940, 940. If you will, turn your Bibles to Lamentations chapter 2, verses 19. Arise, cry out in the night, at the beginning of the watch. Pour out your heart like water, with face up. Lift your hand towards him, the life of his young children. He faints from hunger at the head of the spirit. Pour out your heart like water, to the face of him. The Lord wants us to come and let him know about our personal life struggle. He wants us to pray so he can help. When we pray, we start to develop friendship and a very strong bond with God. John chapter 15, verses 15. No longer do I call you servant, for a servant does not know what his master is doing. But I call you friends, for all things I have heard from my Father I have made known unto you. Jesus here states that we are his friends. For a bond of friends to grow, we must spend time together. We spend time together with God when we are in the church, reading his word, praying too. We can start our bond with God at near the time we want. And it can start with just reading the word, just a prayer. Don't wait on God. He is always ready. And he is wanting a bond, and he wants to spend time. He is a friend that will never leave. Hebrews chapter 13, verse 5. Let your conduct be without covetousness. Be content with such things as you have. For he himself said, I will never leave you nor forsake you. He is an eternal friend that loves and cares for all. And God starts with reading his word and praying. Just one prayer will set you free and will start your bond off with God. Read and follow his word. Never forsake him. And always pray, no matter what situation. Every night before you go to bed, always remember to pray and ask. It's never too late to come to God. Some of us have to stand here.
All three verses. Hear the sweet voice of Jesus say, Come unto me, I am the way. you so. Only a step, only a step. Come for he bled for you and now. He's the same loving Savior, yes. Jesus the crucified. Casting your heavy burdens down. Come to the cross, the world may frown. Yet you shall wear a glorious crown when he makes out his own. Only a step, only a step. Come for he bled for you and now. He's the same loving Savior, yet. Jesus the crucified. Open for you the pearly gate. Love for you. Now watch and wait. Terrible thought to cry too late. Jesus, I come to thee. Only a step, only a step. Come for he bled for you and now. He's the same loving Savior, yet. Jesus the crucified. Let's thank everyone for coming out tonight. Visit with your honored guest, actually come back in now. Does anyone have any other announcements? Everyone have a safe rest of the week. Nice weekend. Over.
Heavenly Father, we come before you, thanking you for the opportunity to gather here tonight and such as the whole Bible. Father, we pray for church here at Praise. We pray for each member. We pray that we continue to grow in the Spirit. Father, we pray for our elders, for the body of the field. Continue to bless them and guide them. Give them strength, courage, and wisdom to make decisions concerning the church. Be with brothers and finances, pick up the first of the time. Thankful for Brother John and his family as he gets along by serving. Father, we pray for the sick, especially those who have been missing here tonight. We pray for the ones that are lost loved ones. Praise you. Father, we pray for our country. They look for your will to be done. Father, we ask that you watch over and protect us. In Christ's name, we pray. Amen.